Hello, everyone. I'm Robyn Grable, the founder of Talents Ascend and the Ascend Collective, and your host for Ascending Beyond Barriers. Welcome. Ascending Beyond Barriers is an inspiring podcast dedicated to showcasing the remarkable journeys of small business founders who have faced and overcome significant challenges on their path to success. Each episode delves into the personal stories of entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds, highlighting their unique experiences, struggles, and triumphs. Today, we're excited to welcome Nena Hart. She's the president of the National Nurses in Business Association and owner of Hart Healthcare Solutions, a certified ACHC and CHAP consultant. Nena helps hospice and home care leaders achieve operational excellence. With 20 years of post-acute leadership experience, she transitioned into entrepreneurship after losing her corporate hospice executive role. Now she's on a mission to help exhausted nurses break free from traditional roles, build thriving businesses, and take control of their careers. Based in Tennessee with her husband and 4 children, Nena is dedicated to creating a future where nurses have the freedom, flexibility, and financial success they deserve. Hello, Miss Nena. I'm so excited to talk with you. I haven't talked to you since we graduated from the 10KSB program almost a year ago. Wow. It's just like time just is flying by way too fast. It seems like the older I get, the more fast it goes. But so much to talk about. I know when we went through 10KSB, you had an exciting opportunity. Let's start there. How did that happen? Did that come to fruition? What's been going on since we graduated?
Yeah, thank you. So, updates. It's been a very, very busy last year for me.
I bet.
My growth opportunity for our program goals ended up working out, and that's how
Yay.
thank you, acquired and took over as president for the National Nurses in Business Association. And, um, you know, just reflecting on how business goes, that is not something that was even on my radar a year before.
Wow.
So it was a big opportunity. It was a huge blessing, just
Yeah.
both personally and professionally, because of my heart for nurses.
Yeah.
And in the same vein, my business consulting for hospice compliance has also grown exponentially and added contractors to my team and new clients. And it's very exciting. It's a very exciting time to be in business for yourself in general. So I'm really have been taking on a lot of new roles and learning how to be the CEO instead of working in my business. I'm working
Uh,
on my business. And so
yeah.
it's definitely been something that's been a slow process for me over the last 5 years.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that. I know it was kind of when we were graduating, going through the last part of our class, it was kind of up in the air and you were like, gosh, do I do this? Is this going to work out? And it sounds like it did and quite well. So I'm so happy for you. That's awesome. God bless you for being a nurse and helping nurses, because it's one of those things I could never do. In fact, I've told my husband multiple times that when he starts needing like in-home care, it will not be me, because I just can't do it. I just can't do it. So God bless you and all the nurses out there, because it is not easy work. And it sometimes thankless work, which is really sad. Speaking of hospice as well, about a year ago, my aunt, who I called mom, passed away. She was in hospice for about 4 days. Absolutely loved the experience she had with the hospice nurses there. It was an incredible experience for her final days and for the rest of us, because we were all we got to stay in the room with her, and they were just so gracious, and it was just a really wonderful experience. Not that I want to go through that really ever again, because it was just awful watching her end of breath, but just the whole experience for hospice. So tell us how you got into that and what kind of guided you to help in that regard, because that's really amazing. So.
My entire career has been in healthcare. So when I was 18 years old, I became a CNA, a certified nurse's aide in long-term care, so in a nursing home. And
Wow.
I kind of recognized pretty immediately that our healthcare system is very broken. and
Yes.
doesn't function the way we need it to serve our elders who we love and revere so much. Don't
Yes.
often get the care and the compassion that they need. And
No.
so I recognized that almost immediately. And I came home and I
There you
told
go.
my husband I had been working for as a CNA for a while. And I came home. I think I was only like 21 years old, 20 years
Wow.
old, and brand newly married, and said, I think I'm going to have to become the director of nursing. I'm going to have to get my RN and become the director of nursing so things get done right around here. Like,
There you go.
what a lofty thought that was, because I did get my RN and become the director of nursing. And unfortunately,
Nothing
things still
changed.
don't always go right. And my impact, although I feel really good about what I've done in leadership in healthcare, is just not enough, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm really fortunate to now, 21 years later, have done a lot of amazing things and been surrounded by a lot of amazing people who are making a huge impact. But at the time, it felt very discouraging.
Yeah.
Um, I did move into hospice. I had the opportunity to do some hospice on call, and
Mm.
when I first got my RN, my first job was the director of nursing, and I realized that was way too demanding to have small children, so
Oh,
I didn't want to do that anymore. I needed a break, and I had just had my son Jordan, who's 16
wow.
now, and I did some on call. It seemed more flexible and it was in the home. It was one patient at a time and I would only
Mm.
have to work, a few nights a week, and I was up with the baby anyway. So
Right.
um and so I really fell in love with hospice at that point, and that
Wow.
one-on-one level of care that the patients get was so different than what I had experienced in long-term care, where I had 30 patients at a time as an LPN.
Exactly.
So I really fell in love with seeing the patient in their own home environment. You get the backstory that you don't have in a facility of what their
Right.
life was like and what support they have or don't have and what resources they have or hadn't had. And so just a
Mm.
totally different ball game. But I fell in love with hospice immediately and worked my way up to a director and then an area vice president. I had 30 locations in Tennessee. And we actually had a survey for those locations from that ACHC that you read in my bio. Is an accrediting body, and they
Okay.
do surveys for hospices. And they surveyed 27 of our 30 locations all at once. It was the largest survey ever done at the time in the nation. We were the
Wow.
largest provider ever surveyed. And I learned so much from that experience. I had an amazing team with me who still works with me today, some of them
Nice.
in my own business. And so, it was a good experience. I learned a lot, and I realized that I really liked understanding the components of what makes things work, and how meeting those regulatory compliance components can help us give better care, deliver better care, make things make more sense in our healthcare operations and hospice. And so, um, I was able to transition into self employment. I got my dream job in Hawaii as a hospice CEO. And
Wow.
after arriving there and being moved there with my family of six, I was fired 5 weeks later.
Oh no.
I didn't get a reason. I didn't get the answer
Seriously?
to that question.
Oh
I'll
my
never
goodness.
know why that had to happen. But because of that, I was able to start my own consulting company, and
There you
had
go.
my first client within a month of losing that job, and have that client today, 5 years later. Yes,
Wow.
he's still a client of mine. And helping them have good survey outcomes, helping them with leadership and processes, and meeting regulatory compliance components like survey accreditation,
Wow.
quality measures and things like that. And so I'm always learning. It's a constant learning experience,
Yeah.
and I'm just super grateful for it.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm glad we're friends because if it ever comes to me being in hospital, I'm finding one of the facilities that you've trained so that I can be there. Because wow, that's just and it is so important because families are grieving. They're going through this process of not can't really make decisions because all they want to think about is I mean I know that I got there Friday night and I didn't take a shower. I didn't leave because I was so afraid of leaving the room, that it might be might not get another chance to be
Yeah.
with her. So yeah, it's a tough time for families, and you just really depend on the nurses and the staff of those facilities to really have the best interest at heart and take care of you in a good way. So, well, I want to touch on, so when you talked about, hey, you thought you'd become a manager and change it, director and change it. I thought that about the Navy too. I was enlisted. I thought I'll become an officer and I can change the Navy and, it'll be better. No, no, that
Lofty
was,
goals we have.
woo, that was just not, but it didn't work out. And so now I'm fast forward, I'm where I'm at and I'm totally blessed, which I think again for you as well, everything happens for a reason, I believe. So you were meant to be in Hawaii to probably just meet your client
Yeah.
that you ended up having for 5 years now. And although it felt painful at the time, it turned out to be a blessing and that's awesome. So as you're working with these facilities and with nurses and helping them, because you help nurses get into their own business, right? Which
Yeah.
again, a lot of people do because they're frustrated with corporate or they think I have a better way of doing something. So I'm gonna build my own business. How
Yeah.
do you help them? Kind of give us your, like, what's your guidelines on helping a nurse start her own business and going from being the, provider to being the CEO of a company?
I like that question and the way you asked that, because I don't think it's always presented that way. And my answer is like very counterintuitive, because it seems like what I would provide would be a strategy on how to start your own business, and that's what all nurses ask for. Nurses are very We are trained to be task oriented. I need to check on
Yes.
this. I need to
Right.
record this. I need to
Yeah.
monitor this. I need to complete this task. Check, 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 check. And we
Right.
believe that there certainly must be out there this checklist for business that if I only had that, then I could just quit my job and everything would be
Yeah.
okay. And that is a serious belief. It might sound silly to minimize it that way, but that is a serious belief a lot of nurses have, is if I
Wow.
only had the strategy, because I don't have business training, I'm just a nurse, right?
Right.
If I
Yeah.
only had the strategy to run a business and
Yeah.
someone could just give me that checklist, that process, then I could just quit my job and have my own business. And unfortunately, the first step is mindset and the belief that you can, and the belief that
Mm.
you have what it takes to run a business without having an MBA. Um,
Okay.
I joke around, but it's really serious. A nurse could go open a gas station or a coffee shop or a bookstore or a grocery store with nothing else. You don't need
Sure.
anything else. With the license from the state, go to your
Right.
state and get a business license, right? But we make it so much harder because we believe that it should be harder or that it will be harder. It has to be harder. It can't be that easy. And so that's a lot of what I spend my time on when I'm coaching nurses, and with the NNBA as well, the National Nurses and Business Association. A lot of our conference content for this year is around recognizing possibilities, possibility thinking, um,
Nice.
and those mindset components that really hold nurses back, those limiting beliefs that nurses
Mm.
have
Wow.
about
I mean,
business.
it is true. There's no guide, no checklist to running a business, and being an entrepreneur is tough. You have an idea. I mean, I go through it every day. It's like I have this great idea to help small businesses and veterans, military spouses connect. All the other stuff, I got to figure out the marketing and I got to figure out the sales and I got to figure out this. And there's no, like, I always tell Neela this all the time. It's like, I feel like there's a missing ingredient to the cake I'm trying to bake here. And if I just knew what that ingredient was, I'd have a wonderful, lovely cake. But you just don't get to know that. So, but
Yeah.
mindset does play a huge part in it. And you have to know that you can do it and believe that you can. So you do
Yeah.
all the time. Like, and it can be a roller coaster of emotions up and down. You can have a great day, and then you can have a really bad day. And then some of the bad days are really, really bad. And you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And you have to remember the why. So that's super exciting. I'm just like, it's a blessing. And I don't know that I've really heard a lot of people that do what you do. So I'm just in awe of everything that you're able to accomplish and help the
You and
nurses.
me both.
It's a lot. So on that vein, then how do you as an entrepreneur juggle everything, and how do you tell people to overcome the bad days and try to juggle all that you've got going on?
Um, I talk a lot about affirmations and like self talk and like managing thoughts. That's a
Yeah.
big thing for me. And that's been a big thing for me, especially through getting fired and having my definition of success challenged.
Yeah.
As I was working my way up the ladder in these healthcare organizations, that is how I started to define my value as a person and my value as a nurse and
Yeah.
what success meant to me. So losing my job was a really big deal. It wasn't just like, oh, that didn't work out, right?
Right.
It really challenged the core of everything I believed about myself,
Wow.
and the value that I had. And so, I had to like really, I grieved that. First of all, I grieved that. But
Yeah.
really, I had to challenge my belief system you know, uh, I'm a person of deep faith and I'm a very spiritual person. So God was a big part of this process for me, a big part of this journey,
Sure.
and asking him for what my value was and reframing what I thought success meant. So I think
Yes.
it's your own personal journey to
Yeah.
kind of challenge why you're having those thoughts and if you're going to believe them or not,
Yeah.
and then having affirmations that support what you want to believe. So for me, I have little note cards everywhere that are like, you have enough time for everything you want to do. That's my current note card.
Okay.
And they vary based on what my challenge is at the time. So that should tell you what it is. But my current note card, I think I have it right here next to me somewhere, is you have enough time. I have more than enough time for everything that I want to do. And so,
Yeah.
those are the kind of things I use. And then they kind of challenge me to change how I'm thinking. Like, if I had enough time, what would I do differently than I'm doing right now that's making me believe that I don't have enough time?
Right.
So delegation has been a lot of that for me, asking for help.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
Hiring an executive assistant slash my husband to,
Nice.
yeah, that's one of the better business decisions I've made. And the man brings me coffee and breakfast, and it's life changing, right?
Wow.
Yes. Oh, yes. And he gets very low pay, right? He's not
It's
paid.
all in the benefits.
Yeah, it is. He's not paid enough. The benefits are good, but the pay is very poor. Um,
That's
but
awesome.
I think for me, it's really kind of to what you said, kind of to your point of like, why am I doing this? Going
Yeah.
back to the why, and really like for me, when I get even deeper than that, it's like I'm just showing up to serve. I'm just helping people, right? As a
Yeah.
hospice nurse, like everybody would always say like, isn't that the most depressing job ever? That's probably the most common question I have as a hospice nurse. Isn't that the most
Yes.
depressing job you could imagine?
Yep.
And no, my answer is a hard no. It's one of the most joyful, encouraging, to honorable, like to be in the room with your family while your
Yeah.
aunt was passing is one of the most
Yeah.
honorable experiences a nurse
Yeah.
can have, to spend that time with your family and that person.
And I was one of those people that would have said, "How could you do this? It's so depressing." And to have to grieve with every family that comes in here. But after my experience, I agree with you. They got such joy out of being there to help us and give us whatever we needed. I'm going to get emotional. It was a totally different experience. So I absolutely agree with you, and thank you. I mean, I think people need to hear that, that end of life is a grieving process, but there are people out there that will help you through it.
And I
That
talk to
and
my kids about
Yeah.
that, that dying is, I've been with enough people that have died to know that it's a joyful experience for the most part.
Yeah.
The deaths that I was physically present for, I can say were not painful or traumatic for the most part. There are a
Yeah.
few, right? There are a few
Yeah.
that either we don't get there in time or things didn't go well or there's family dynamics that we can't resolve. As a hospice nurse, we're not
Right.
we're not Superman. We can't fix 30 years of family dynamics that are,
Right.
culminating at the bedside of your dying loved one. We don't
Right.
have that power, but we can try and mediate. And a lot of the times I did, maybe you should step away for a few minutes. That's
Good for you.
so,
Yep.
but I feel the same way about the hospices that I serve and the nurses in business that I
Wow.
serve. You're walking through this journey with them that's very emotional. You're
Yeah.
walking through this scary valley of like, can I really do this or not, with the nurses specifically. And so, It's an honor. It's a joy. It's exciting. It's something new every day. It's,
Yeah.
and so I really kind of tap into that. And like the service is kind of what it all, no matter what I do, I'm serving someone somehow. And no matter if it works out amazing or if it doesn't, you know, I love to serve people and help people and see the outcomes, the positive outcomes that
Yeah.
happen for the hospice, for the patients, that they're getting this better quality of care.
Yeah.
You know, for the hospice, that they're not losing money on fines or bad
Yeah.
surveys or getting shut down. A
Yep.
lot of these smaller individually owned hospices provide amazing care, provide the best care you could get, but they don't have the resources that these national companies have. So a lot of times their documentation or their systems aren't where they need to be. And so they
Mm.
suffer for that. And so,
Wow.
just seeing the positive outcomes of like being there to support them to get what they deserve and get that the money and reimbursement for the care they're delivering, and so that they don't get fines or bad surveys or shut down or decertified.
Yeah.
um, there's a magnifying glass right now with Medicare, on hospice, and so it's really challenging to navigate alone. And so I just love being there to be that support and to say like, hey, this is totally doable, and here's how we're going to do it. And I think that's kind of my main role as a consultant, to um, be that cheerleader with a strategy.
There you go. And you are really good at it. So they are blessed to get you to work with them. So I just, it is very admirable. Again, I have gone through the experience and know now, what they do, what they, have to go through every day in a hospice situation. And it's not easy. As
I
we
can.
close out, what is the advice that you tell a nurse when she comes to you, or he or she comes to you and says, I want to start my own business? What's the first thing you ask them?
I usually, the first thing I say is, what do you want to do? Because, I think that idea and that possibility thinking, kind of all back to mindset. It all goes back to mindset, no matter what
Yeah.
we want to face or not. That
Right.
idea is there, even if they're afraid to say it.
Yeah.
Maybe they haven't told anyone. I actually was creating courses for directors of nursing for over a year that I never shared with anyone, even my husband,
Wow.
because I wasn't ready. Because it
Yeah.
wasn't ready, right? We'll never be
It
ready. It will
wasn't
never be
perfect.
ready. Still not ready. Okay. So, and that was 2018, 2019. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like, once I started talking about it and sharing it, it became real, right? And
Yeah.
I went a totally different direction with it and put all these forms and documents in a little folder and shared it on a Facebook group for directors of nursing and said, here it is. It's $27 for 10 years of my experience making these survey forms. And I sold 100 that weekend.
Nice.
That was my first passive revenue I ever had, was just this little folder of forms that I made up for directors of nursing. And
Nice.
Memorial Day weekend, it made $2,700. And
I love
so
it.
yeah, that was a big deal for me to see like,
Yeah.
wow, I've been working on this for over a year. That was in 2020. So I had already
Wow.
been working on it and never shared it with anyone for over a year. And just decided to put it out there, right? So I just kind of challenged them a little bit to say it out loud. And what do you want to do? What are you excited
Yeah.
about? Like, try to feel out where that desire to be self-employed is coming from and what service they could offer, and then help them kind of refine that and talk through it more.
Awesome. Trying really finding their
Yeah.
why they want to
Yeah,
start the business. Yeah. Awesome.
exactly.
All right, Miss Nina. Well, our time is short. Unfortunately, we could talk a lot longer, but it's
For
so good
sure.
to see you again. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all your insights. And thank you again for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. And I follow you on LinkedIn. I love your content. I find it super valuable. And I'm glad to be here and getting to talk to you.
Thank you.